Once there was, and once there wasn't. A very, very, very long time ago, before man was creeping upon Midgard, there was a war in the sky. In this time, the Aesir and the Vanir were fighting each other in a battle not comprehensible to the intellect of man. And this battle was ferocious. Brother fought brother and sister fought sister as the blood of the slain was dripping down to the soil of Midgard. But every battle must end. And so, this one did as well. The mighty came together in a great, great hall to talk about the peace. They came forth, and in the middle of this hall was standing a very, very large cauldron. One by one, did all the members of the dwarf family spit into the cauldron and see there born from this spittle was Kvasir. And Kvasir was the wisest that had ever lived. He embodied the desire for peace between the gods. And it wasn't long after Kvasir was born that the news of his skill spread throughout all the worlds. And when all the creatures and all the things heard about what Kvasir could do, they all desired his presence. They would ask him all the questions that plagued them. And there wasn't one question that Kvasir did not have a satisfying answer to. Kvasir was good of heart. So he spent his days walking to all the corners of the 9 worlds, answering all these questions. And everyone loved Kvasir for what he did. He had brought not only peace to the gods, but to the minds of all the beings. So did spread the desire in the darker hearts of the 9 worlds. Deep down in the dark world of Svartalheim, when they heard this, they desired but one thing: to capture this skill and work it into something that all the creatures would foresee that they were indeed the mightiest and the most skilled of craftsmen. So their dark hearts went to work on a plan. And after some thinking, they come up with an idea. They send out a message to Kvasir inviting him over to their home for a great, great feast. And Kvasir, although he was aware of the treacherous nature, accepted this invitation. For he was so good-willing that he even wanted Svartalheim to possess understanding. And so it was that Kvasir traveled to the 2 brothers. And when he stood before their hall and he knocked, it was a step that he would regret for the rest of his life. Kvasir was seated down on a long table, and indeed this table was filled with many riches, with many drinks, with many foods of all kinds. And after Kvasir had eaten bread offered him and asked him the following question: "Oh, wise Kvasir, can you answer me this question? Which wise was? Which wise was?" A riddle. which wise was. Kvasir, as he took another sip of his wine, he stopped. He dropped his cup to the ground. His eyes became as wide as millstones. And before he had any chance, the beer product struck him down in his neck, and his blood was gushing forth from his wound over the long table. And as soon as they saw that the blood was coming out of his body, it gathered up 3 great farts, and they gathered the blood inside of it. Later they added honey. And in this mead was contained the essence of Kvasir's skill. All his creativity, wisdom, imagination, and far-sightedness was captivated in this brew. And pleased with themselves, they possessed one of the mightiest drinks in all of the 9 worlds. But when a heart has been tainted by the blood of another, it can never, ever forget the taste. So too the hearts of the dark hearts desired only one thing more than to drink from their mead, and it was to have more hate, more violence. Because just like a bog, a dark heart remains sacrifice. And so they went out looking for a new victim. And they found an innocent giantess sitting on a cliff, watching the seas. And Fjallar bade his brother Gjallar to take a millstone and drop it upon her head. And just as he was about to drop the millstone, an unexpected hand grabbed him in the neck. It was the giant Sutu. In the meantime, while this all had come to be, there was one who had watched everything from Asgard. It was the Allfather. Odin had seen everything that had come to pass, and he had weighed, and he had felt that the time now was ripe. And he called himself Bolverk. And he traveled to 9 working on the land. And these 9 were working with their scythes, and he called out to them, "Hard workers, hear me now. I carry with me a whetstone so special that it will make your scythes sharper than they have ever been, and they will cut 9 times faster than any of them have done before." When Odin asked one for his scythe, sharpened it with his stone, and he began to cut, he saw that indeed it was done 9 times faster than any of their scythes had done it before. And when he found the right place, he started to drill with a very, very long drill. And he drills, and he drills, and he drills, and he keeps drilling, and he keeps drilling. He looks inside the hole, he blows in it, and then the wind goes straight through. The work is done. And the giant still tries to stab after him, knowing full well that he has every opportunity that Bolverk had seen. But he misses him, and in one big drink, he empties it completely. He goes to the second vial, he picks it up and empties it with one sip. And he goes to the third vial, and with one sip he empties that as well. Odin transformed himself in a large eagle. He flies to the top of the cavern, breaks open the mountain, and speeds off with the mead of poetry. And he flies as fast as he can back to the walls of Asgard, where the gods are waiting for him. But in the distance, Sutu had seen an eagle break out of the mountain, and he knew what had happened. He knew exactly what was going on. He too transformed himself into a large bird of prey, and he started to fly after Odin as fast as he could. And a race ensued, and for some time it seemed that Odin was up front, and then Sutu came really close, and they dived, and they flew, and there in the distance, the walls of Asgard started to appear, and they grew ever bigger and greater, and the gods were standing on the walls, waiting with a very, 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 very large cauldron. And when Odin was close, he let himself fall, and with one big burp, he emptied the complete batch of mead of poetry into the cauldron. And the gods had now possession of the mead of poetry, this spittle. But as Odin had spilled all the mead into the big cauldron, 9 drops in his haste had missed, and they had fallen down to earth, to Midgard. And from these 9 drops, man gets the basis for his inspiration. From these 9 drops, all mediocre poets are created. But for those who truly wish to become the greatest of the greatest and have their names echo down in history, they must ask Odin himself for a sip of his precious mead. And for those that do, and thus the mead of poetry is brought forth out of Kvasir. So think, the next time you write, you sing, you talk, you compose, ask Odin. Know that knowledge, know that creativity and inspiration demand sacrifice. Feed the raven. Feed your soul. And the gods will grant you from their precious drink. Hear my advice. Hear it. We are as the gods, and the gods wish they were as us. Be wise. Be wise. Be wise.